All right, so in this video, I'm going to show you how to spread specimens. So specifically, we're going to be looking at Lepidoptera and Odonata. So we'll start with Lepidoptera. One thing that I like to do to start is you'll take your specimen, and even if it's been in the freezer, it'll be a little bit dried out by this time. And so there are ways to hydrate it where you put it in like a chamber with some water overnight, and that works. But in a pinch, what you can do is take a little needle, and you're going to get some water just like that. And then you will inject it into the butterfly, just right into the thorax. And then what that does is that will help hydrate it so that the wings are a little more pliable. Now, I actually already went ahead and did this before, so it should be nice and pliable. And it also probably goes without saying, but you don't want to touch these with your hands if possible. One thing I forgot to mention real quick is to do this, you're going to want a spreading board. You're going to want some of these sewing needles, not to go through the insect, but I'll show you what it's for in a sec. And then you'll want your insect pins as well, typically a size 2. And then some wax paper. And I like to just cut up little bits like this, and they work for most things. Now note, there are different spreading boards. I prefer ones like this that have a bit of an angle to them and are adjustable. Ones like this work too, but with it being flat, it's just not ideal. So work with whatever you've got. But the adjustable kinds that are angled are best. And so I'm going to set this to be about that thick. That should be fine. We're also going to be spreading some odonates, so we want to pick kind of an intermediate size. And so something like this is good. Okay. So what we're going to do is use our forceps. And we're going to use them to try and spread the wings like this. And you want to do it just enough so that you can get that pin in. Now, just like with other insects, you want to go through the thorax, but this time you're going to go through the center of the thorax and not the side, because these are going to be spread. And so you want the weight to be distributed evenly. So I want to see if I got this pin in even. And remember, you want the wings to be flat. So that's what you want to set the pin to, is wherever that makes the wings nice and flat. So they would need to come up like this maybe. Okay. Yep, and you maybe can see that pin came out right in between those legs, which is ideal. So let's go ahead and insert that pin. And we're gonna do our best here. Spreading is a lot more tricky than, in my opinion anyway, than just pointing insects regularly or pinning them regularly, because you need an entirely different apparatus and different skills, and the focus is also different. So don't beat yourself up if you ruin some butterflies, which I've definitely done and hopefully don't do right now. Okay, so we want to make sure we put this in our spreading board as flat or as straight up and down as possible. Oh, and then I don't worry about adjusting the legs at all, just because they are super, super fragile. And when it comes to Lepidoptera, the things that they really care about are just the wings. Of course, you want to keep as much of it intact as possible, but really focus on those wings. So now that we've got it down nice and flat, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these and I'm going to take these pins. Now, the reason why I like to use these in here is because you're going to be pushing up and down lots and lots, and regular insect pins typically don't have a lot of like enamel or anything up here, and so it can hurt your fingers after a while. So I use these for the parchment paper. So what we're going to do is we're going to lay it flat, and you may have to put a couple pins down in here to help make it so it doesn't move. And then what I'll do is I'll take this pin, I'll kind of hook it into the veins up here, and I'll drag it up, trying not to puncture it. And to do it, if you can do it in like one attempt, that's usually best. Now, I might pin that there for now because you see the body moved. And so I want to go do the front of the other side, and then we'll come back to the left side. So we'll take this, carefully go down, and then we'll grab this and pull. And we will hook into that vein there. Now, the goal with Lepidoptera is to get the wings at a parallel, nice 90-degree angle between the fore and hind wings. And so from what I can tell, I think we actually got it. So I'll set a couple pins like that. And we'll go through and tighten all these up in a sec. But this is just for now. Okay, perfect. So it may be a little hard to see, but the front pair of wings is roughly 90 degrees. There's a flat line there. Let's go back to our other side. And, you know, I think we actually did pretty good with that first pair of wings. So what we're going to do now is take our pin. We're going to hook into the vein, the strongest vein closest to the body. And I'm just going to pull it so that it sits underneath and parallel with the front set of wings. So the back wings are underneath the front pair of wings, just barely. They're just tucked in. Wrong pin. And there's a nice flush angle between them. And so if we look at that left side now, that left side is complete. So now we'll go back to the right side and we'll finish it off. I feel like we could bring the right side up just a hair. And it can be risky to go through and change things again. Every time you touch the scales, you risk doing more harm than good. So just be careful. And I think that's as good as we're going to get it. And you don't want to mess with it so much that you rub all the scales off. Ooh, looks like it slipped. Okay. So that forewing isn't going anywhere now. And now we'll do the same thing we did on the left side. We'll take this. We'll tuck it underneath just a little so that it sits at roughly 90 degrees like this. And that is it. So let's see. That's about it right there. Okay. So now what I'll do is I feel like we did a good job the wings are all split 180 degrees, 90 degrees. They're nice and high, and you can see all the venation and the scales and everything. So we'll add a couple more reinforcement pins so that these don't sag backwards. I'll probably, let's add one here. So they also go nice and flat. Another thing to note is that you want, of course, the pin height to be correct. Okay, last thing are the antennae. You want them to be roughly parallel with the wings. And so that's what we're going to try to do here. Let's see. So honestly, that's probably good there. And then this one, same thing. I might just use that existing pin as like a track almost. Oh, oops, you don't want that. I'll use these. Oof. This is sloppy, sorry. Okay. All right, the antennae now are flush with the wings and they go along with the wings. Now, if your specimen is really large, you could brace the back of this like we're going to do with the dragonfly. But for this lep, I think we're good. So moving on to the dragonflies, dragonfly and damselfly. We'll start with the dragonfly. Now these are a little different from other insects in that it's almost going to feel like the bug is looking down, like the dragonfly is looking down. So this one dried nice and flat, which is nice. But what you want to do is you want to get your pin and you're going to put it through the forewing or through the thorax right in the center of the forewings. There's like a little triangle here that I try to hit like that. And then you want the wings to be flat. And what that means is that your pin is going to feel like it's coming too far forward. But that's how you want it. So, yeah. So, if you look, this looks like, whoa, your pin is way off. It's coming this way. But actually, the pin is fine, and the bug is going to adjust a little bit. So, the dragonfly looks like it's looking down, but that's okay because we want the wings to be flat. And as you'll see, the pin came out right around that second pair of legs, which is where you want it to come out. So in between the forewings, right next to the legs. So we will stick this in. And like that. And this can take a few tries. See, it looks like it's too far forward. There we go. That has it going straight up and down. Push it deep enough so that the wings are flush. And with these, I like to pick little thinner strips of parchment paper. And you're going to do the same thing you did with the butterflies, only a little bit less stressful because you don't have scales you're worried about rubbing off. So you want to bring the bottom wing up to 90 degrees and then just make sure the top wing doesn't overlap. So that'll look something like this. And again, I use the veins to pull up on it a little bit. Try not to punch through it if you can. That looks like a leg, a rogue leg. We'll push that down. Okay. There we go. And we'll just set some pins around it. And we may have brought this up a little high. So there we go. Okay, that's one side down. Now we'll get another one for the other side. Let's see. And I didn't have another cut one, so I just made one real quick, no problem. So we'll take this bottom wing, bring it up, bring the forewing up, and we're pulling along the veins. And when the parchment paper is nice and flush, you can see through and see where the wings ended up. So I may pull this one up a little bit. I feel like if you can get a pin in right there in between where those wings meet, that means you're probably in the right spot. Same thing here. Throw a pin in right there. Let's see. Okay, so that's it for the wings. And then now that we've moved the body the way we have, the back end, the abdomen is going to sag. So you want to take a couple pins and brace it like that. So now the body will look like it's flat. It's flush with the wings, but then the thorax looks crooked and the head looks like it's looking down. But that's fine because we really care about the wings. And we're going to do the same thing with this damselfly. These can be pretty tricky because of how small they are, but we're going to just do our best. So with these, it's even harder to know exactly where to put the pin, but you're just going to basically follow. Let's see if I can set this up in a way. You're going to follow through like this way, through the thorax, ending up in between the legs. So we'll go through the thorax right there. And some of them even have some nice lines on the side, some lateral lines, and you can just basically follow that right out. And there you go. You can see the pin is coming out right in between those legs. So we will push that pin in, try not to bend the wings. Okay. So like that. And now what we'll do is push it in, making sure it stays flat. Let's see. And this spreading board is a little bit on the tougher side as far as the material I'm pushing into. So I'm going to have to use my forceps to help drive it in. Come on. Let's see. Let me grab my other hair. So I can grab these a little bit stronger. There we go. Okay. Yep, that'll be perfect. Okay. So we'll take another thin piece of parchment paper or wax paper, set it down, pull the wings up so the bottom pair sits horizontal. Let's see, let me bring him up on the pin just a titch. That's better. And just like the other things we're spreading, we'll surround it. Oh, I should add one here too. Moving a little bit quick just for the sake of video, but when you do this yourself, you'll want to make sure you take your time. And so let's see, I think we should move this a little closer. Even though we're spreading these, we still don't want them to take up, the most amount of room. And I know that in a lot of museums now, they just leave them in little envelopes, but I like to do this. You can see the wing venation. That's the best way to identify them, to my knowledge anyway. So that's one side. Now let's do the other side the exact same way. That looks pretty level right there. Okay, so the wings are, again, the hind wings are nice and parallel. They're horizontal, they're level with each other, and then the forewings are sitting just above that. And now we'll prop up the abdomen so it doesn't sag. Let's see. And you can just do the same thing you would do with anything else. Just make a little V and push it up like that. And there you have it. So that is how you spread a few different insects. And yeah, you let this dry for 2 weeks is kind of the minimum. That'll vary depending on the humidity and temperature and everything in the place that you live or wherever they're being stored. But generally 2 weeks, and then you'll just remove all of these. I use forceps to carefully lift the parchment paper, especially for leps, and then you're done. So that is how you spread insects.